Alright, and we are clear on that.
I realized I didn't even actually say anything about the crafting system, but
Honestly, the crafting
ironically,
system
the
was
crafting
meh.
system is like,
Or the murder system.
yeah, I don't think I even got to that part, but the
I
crafting system is
same.
like simple enough that it didn't stick in my memory.
I think we've all encountered games like that.
No.
Like that was something that it did moderately well.
I love when you're waiting all day for a letter and it finally arrives when you're busy doing something.
I'll be right back. I need to go
Alright.
to the bathroom.
Like, but this was worth waiting for. Because guess who we're having on the program in a few months?
John, wait.
I mean, yes, but this is somebody new.
Oh, new people.
Yeah. Looks like Way Forward is going to be on our program soon.
Oh, we're finally getting Way Forward? Nice. I know you've been trying to get them for a little while.
Yeah. I mean, like, apparently they're going to send us the director and writer of River City Girls.
Nifty.
Yes. Not exactly what I asked for, but I was looking for, Shantae or Contra. Oh, well, I'll take it.
Well, yeah. I mean, River City Girls isn't bad, so.
No.
Is that still on? That is not on Game Pass anymore. Damn it. That is fine. Is it on Cloud Game Pass by any chance still? No. Oh well. I'm sure I'll figure something out.
Yeah. Let me mention.
And who sent us Noxia Somnia?
Noxia Somnia, Reframe Games.
There we go.
Once again, we had them on the program back in January.
Mm-hmm. And this demo I'm playing was the old Next Fest demo.
It was.
I would just need to make sure to mention that.
Right. Because I'm like, don't think you want to spend $13 on this.
It looks interesting. I may toss it in my wish list. But, like...
I mean, yeah, I would say it's worth the money.
Yeah, it's one of those, I might look into it, but I also have, other purchases I need to make.
I know.
It's almost like being an adult is hard.
No one ever said it was going to be easy.
I mean, they did, but those were people who were born with, more money than brains.
Or they were liars. Certainly encountered liars.
Yes.
Anyway.
I think we were just waiting on Gullix.
Right.
And I guess when we are done here, I'm going to send you over to Nick Nocturne, Sergeant. If you're into like ARG horror type stuff, you can go hang out with him and me, because I will be going there.
Okay, I'm
Might wanna-
back.
Sounds like somebody to look into for MSP. Just a thought.
Augmented reality game.
Yes.
Or as Nick often refers to it as unfiction. Basically, for us, it's fake, but for the people inside the universe, it's real. That's why they call it unfiction.
That sounds incredibly pretentious.
It is.
And I don't have time to mock it properly.
I know, and I have tried getting Nick on the show. He has not gotten back to my emails, so
I prefer meta nonfiction where it's fictional even to the people in the story.
Yeah.
Anyway, can we get going?
Yep, we can. Alrighty. Everybody ready to go?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Alright. We shall begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, welcome to the fourth and final review of the evening. Up this time is Noxia Somnia. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Somnia. Anyway, face your fears in this chilling 2D survival horror action game about understanding and overcoming mental health struggles. Explore twisted nightmares, engage in challenging fast-paced combat, and survive encounters with terrifying stalker enemies. Right. So, once again, programming note, we did do an interview with the developers and publishers of this game, Reframe Games, back in January, a couple of weeks before the game arrived on Steam shelves. The interview is with Jeff Mundy and Chris Schreiber, if I'm remembering correctly. So, if you want to hear more insights into the development process behind Noxia Somnia, go and look that one up in our archives. But we've got the full game, or at least I do. We just got the one code, so what Petty is playing here is the Next Fest demo that we actually had going on for the interview. Anyway, so yeah. Noxia Somnia is a 2D survival. Yeah. Calling it a survival horror game may be a bit much. Because, how do I put this? The mechanics are too good. I know that might be a weird thing to say, but that's kind of one of the things that typifies, your Silent Hills and early Resident Evils and Alone in the Darks and what have you. Combat is clunky, movement is clunky. There's a lot of clunky stuff going on in order to restrict movement and action and such. Like I did a pretty detailed breakdown about that in our the Evil Within review back around Halloween. Like, in this game demonstrates those traits a lot more in the beginning and less in clunky combat and more in you're just a weak ass normal person with a pocket knife. Like, that can't do much. But that's another thing that separates this game from a more traditional horror title. It's like you do get a lot of upgrades to various not stats necessarily. I mean, you will get sort of that, but various mechanics, let's call them, because you don't really have RPG meters going on here. Like, there's no experience levels or anything like that. It's like you get it's more better weapons and so on and so forth. Or I'm trying to remember one of the best upgrades is the one that increases your walking speed. I don't know what that was in game. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. But I'll say right out that this game does run into the horror upgrade paradox. And if you played enough horror games, you might have encountered this. That is, if you have a horror game with an upgrade system, you run the risk of making the game not scary. And unfortunately, this game ran headlong into that wall. Because, let me rewind to the the bullet points here. Because it mentions surviving encounters with terrifying stalker enemies. And this game has essentially 3 of them in-game. The game is kind of split into 3 acts. There's a bit more, but that'd be going into spoiler territory. But the basic level progression in the regular session is like you will have to deal with this monster that you can't kill. Basically, Nemesis, Pyramid Head, Mr. X, and like a million fucking indie horror titles. You know the type. The completely unkillable horror beast that if reaches you, you are dead. Although it's not quite that severe in this game, because if the lurking horror gets to you, you will take damage, but you won't die. So what you got to do in the level is you've got to you've got a whole bunch of meters that track the various horror incarnation. Like,
Did you just drop off there, or were you?
No, I'm trying to collect thoughts here.
Okay, just
like,
checking.
Oddly enough, like there are 2 awareness meters. There's the eye. That's kind of the monster's awareness of you. And then there's a bar at the bottom of the interface. It might not necessarily... Well, Petty is in a cut scene. But the bar is the proximity. So the more full the bar is, the closer the monster is to you. And the eye, the more open it is, the more aware of it is of you. So, like, if you've got a full bar, it's literally right outside the door, or you'll be able to see it. And if the eye is open, it's fully aware of you and is coming to kill you. And at that point, what you've got to do is, you do the escape thing that so many indie horror titles excel at. Like, either by getting into a room. There's not, I suppose, credit to not having the now stereotypical amnesia lockers. Once again, if you've played a lot of indie horror, you know this. It's the locker you go in and hide into. It's in this case, it's more closets that you can duck into. Though once again, it doesn't always work out. Or there are like safe zones that when you reach, you'll automatically be safe. And that ties into, and I recall this coming up quite prominently in the interview, the pulse rate. So this game ended up probably unintentionally from, of all things, Fear Effect. Because Fear Effect had this kind of system where you weren't, though Fear Effect went complete with it. Like, your health was your pulse rate. Here, your pulse rate is tied to health. There is a difference here because if your pulse rate gets too high, you start losing energy. And also the fucking fisheye lens comes into play. Ugh. I could have done without that. But, it's like, and you'll lose health pretty rapidly if you don't calm down. You calm down a couple of ways. You've got items like teas that will soothe your anxiety. The central mechanic is the light, the flashlight. You've got the flashlight. You can call, your anxiety will go down, but your awareness factor will go up. That's the trade-off there. But it's like if you don't have the flashlight going in an enemy area, you'll automatically get more anxious, even if the monster isn't there. And you'll be able to tell that by the eye. Like, if it's completely closed, if the monster isn't there. And all
I've heard of a user interface thing like that before.
Hmm. I mean, that's handy. In terms of your combat skills, you've got your basic melee weapon. You start out with a pocket knife, and you will upgrade to the weapons I got were a board with a nail in it, a broadsword, and then an actual sword. It like broadsword's kind of tied into a D&D campaign. It's like it's a foam broadsword, but it still does more damage than a uh, board with a nail in it, because that's how the mental realm operates, apparently.
Sure, why not?
Um,
It's conceptually a weapon.
yes. And you do get a few combat upgrades. There's an entire skill tree here. That's where the main upgrades come from. It's a pretty simple one, and you can't get everything at once. Like, you can grind to upgrade both, like, store items and skill tree items. You need coins, level specific objects like razor blades or cogs, or you get shards of crystals, various currencies to upgrade stuff and get health items, or you get a lot of clothes. Like, they are nice reflections of, let's say, the late 2000s for some reason. At least that's what they reminded me of. No, weird. And you also get a dodge roll. It's like it's your best friend, and you'll be using it a lot. Though not too much, because it does have it's not a constant dodge roll. It's a regenerative dodge roll. Because once you
So
dodge,
it has a cooldown?
yes. Not much of a cooldown, and you can reduce that, but it has a cooldown nonetheless. You will get annoyed at this at spots, especially like boss encounters.
Is it a fully invincible dodge roll at least, or?
Yeah, I believe so.
All right.
And you can also get an upgrade to attack out of the dodge roll. And finally, there's the flashlight taser, which is your most powerful weapon, let's say, but it's got a trade-off. It's like, the trade-off is it's got a charge, and that takes time. So it's also something that'll mess with your combat, or at least it messed with mine, because you can't like instantaneously switch from, or there's a dedicated button to turning the light on and off. So you can't quite go into from taser hit to switching to your melee weapon. You use the taser, you got to turn the light off, and then you got to use the melee weapon. Now, the taser and the melee weapon use the same button, X. The switching the light on and off is the left bumper. It's not exactly the smoothest of transitions, though they worked with what they had.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, all of it comes together reasonably well. A lot better than I thought it would be. And the game certainly held my attention more than... anyone else remember this title, Lone Survivor?
I vaguely remember the name, but I don't remember playing it like offhand.
I mean, yeah, it was a big. Like it
I
was a
don't
big.
know if it was. I don't know if it's the right one, but this was really reminding me of something.
Like that's what this game reminded me of. Like, which is not a surprise because that is a 2D horror horror survivor title. That was making the rounds about 10 years ago. I remember it was maybe not big, but I remember it being touted on the Wii U quite a lot. Yeah. Anyway, in terms of the actual horror going on here, a lot of it has to do with mental issues. I'm like, I forget if we went into this. I actually don't think we did. Like, but maybe if the developers get back to us on this, they can answer, because I definitely got the sense that a lot of this stuff was at least quasi autobiographical. Like the game dev stuff definitely felt like somebody's writing what they know and have experienced in real life. Like, and like I'm willing to bet all like just the whole, all of the situations and insecurities and the mental anguish feel like they were being played out. It felt like the developer's sounding board. Like, I'm not exactly sure if this was an intent to do some therapy about, being driftless after high school, not spending enough time with your grandfather, except working a dead-end job at the mall. But I can certainly see it. Like, some of the stuff is definitely more generalized, where you wouldn't necessarily pick up, but some of the other, like, it's really, like, where I felt like the writer, was going through some shit. Also worth noting that this game did just come out a couple of months ago, so it's got the pockmarks of the pandemic times on it. Yeah, there's a lot of lockdown stuff in here as well, which isn't surprising, but maybe a thing that ends up dating the game, because lockdown was a specific time that has passed.
Mm-hmm.
I know there are people on the internet and social media that's upset that, the masking requirements and so on and so forth have largely evaporated. Like, and at this time of recording, like, the CDC has dropped the 10-day quarantine, and I've seen a lot of caterwauling about it. Here's the thing, though. I'm not saying COVID isn't a risk anymore. It is, but people also have to understand that we're not back in 2020 anymore either. We're not back. We have we have several vaccines now.
I mean, yes. I mean, ideally, people who were sick would be able to take as much time as they needed to get better from being sick. Unfortunately, that requires more systematic changes than just a number of days after you need to have not been sick for to
Right.
actually interact with people to fix
Right.
it.
Point of order is COVID is it's just another disease right now. I know that sounds horrible, and yeah, it kind of is, but it's like, as long as you're not an anti-vaxxer motherfucker,
I think we're starting to miss the plot though here.
fair enough. Like, I'm just saying that, you're going to see a lot of pandemic anxiety in this game because it's a product of, mental anguish, horror, and the last couple of years.
Fair.
So it's not a, it's not a big, it's not a theme of the game, or rather a main theme. It's more a subplot.
Yeah, it's kind of like a sub thing where those of us who know. But like, if you come across this in 15 to 20 years, you might think some of the mannerisms are odd.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at here. Like I said, the main thrusts of anxiety are much more timeless, much more universal, thankfully. Or, in the context of the game. In the context of real life, definitely more unfortunate, but like I said, a lot of this stuff is very relatable, because especially the post-graduation ennui.
Well, and like, even just like the high school teacher thing I just went to, I've had teachers who had nothing constructive to say about any of my work, and would just fail me or give me low marks. And I'm sitting here like, what did I do? What can I do to get better? And I'm like, just be better. And they're like, if I could tell you to go fuck off, I would. The only reason why I'm not is because we're literally at the school.
Right. And that's my overall point. Like, most of the themes are very, you've more likely than not to have experienced this, unless you were, supremely gifted and talented. You had a fucking scholarship, and all that, all the opportunities in the world. And then we're talking about a different set of anxieties, because that shit is the amount of pressure that's put on you to succeed.
What's happening with our main character right now is your typical, maybe middle class anxieties.
Yeah. And the theme of the game is, overcoming these metaphors. I will say that some of the names for the bosses were not good. Like the second major monster is literally named the Past. Yeah.
I've met writers who use subtlety, and they're all cowards.
Fuck off.
I mean, it's true. Like, the third is named the Judge. like I said, y'all might want to invest in a thesaurus.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
The Judicator. Okay, that one actually sounds pretty decent for a video game boss.
I mean, that would be better than like the judge is okay, but
Yeah.
just the past.
Mm,
That was just too on the nose for me. Like, okay, I'm literally fighting the past.
yeah. We have all played RPGs at some point in this group. Do you know how many times we've fucking killed our demons?
Yeah,
Quote
like,
unquote.
yeah, it's like, but nitpicks aside, it does a fine enough job in exploring its themes. I will grant I ran out of time before I could get to the final encounter. I didn't quite get 100% in 2 of the 3 acts. Because there are there's like an extra there's a locked door in each act where you find a key somewhere else and you unlock that and you find a hidden area which opens up an optional boss encounter. The one I got to was much less of what the traditional structure here, and it was a complete puzzle boss. I couldn't. You had to find the right way to kill it. It was obvious. It's just you had to get to the right. You had to get to the object, and then it was more chase down, but there was no way to get away from this thing. And the ultimate prize was a larger taser charge with an arc. Very powerful.
Mm.
Yeah. So there were bonus goodies to be found, and I'm sure there was probably more plot behind it, and also where the plot was going was the guide that was guiding me throughout this journey turned out to be evil. I'm sorry about spoilers if you would consider that a spoiler. Look, I played so many video games, I assume guys like this are automatically not on the level.
Mm.
There are 2 kinds of mentors. Ones that are going to die, ones that are going to turn evil, and both.
Or ones that are just kind of useless.
I know that's not literally true,
Yeah.
obviously, but
Yeah.
they both
Anyway.
turn up a lot.
In terms of the music, I will say that the title theme track is surprisingly good. That got stuck in my head. Days after the fact. So, kudos to that. It's like the rest of the music isn't quite as catchy. It's a lot more atmospherically terrifying. I think it's a good way of putting it. And the graphics are going for that. I wouldn't say it's going for any specific type of retro style. This game doesn't actually. It doesn't look like a retro game unless you think pixel art equals 16-bit or 8-bit graphics. Because, truth be told, the graphics are too good and too obviously good to be a throwback kind of deal.
Oh yeah, just looking at some of these lighting effects, I'm pretty sure a 16-bit era console would have exploded.
Oh yes. Even the PlayStation would be having trouble doing something like this.
Mm-hmm.
But that makes sense because there's just not a lot to throw back to in terms of 8 and 16-bit horror. Obviously there are examples. Yes, there's like Clock Tower and Sweet Home and what have you. But look, if you're doing survival horror throwbacks, you're throwing back to the PlayStation. You're throwing back to Resident Evil non-remake 2 and, the original Silent Hill. Back when we had camera angles and the pre-rendered backgrounds with that were basically matte paintings and the tank controls and all that shit. That's not this game. It's its own modern take on horror. And I think that would be a good way of describing this. It's modern horror. It's just
urban horror or whatever, or suburban horror even.
That's the more the genre, if you will.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I just think because some of it's about, it's not just about time period, it's also about setting.
Right. And it's also, how effective is a pixel art game at horror? That's a bit hard to discern. I do think it
How much is your ability to find something scary limited by it being photorealistic?
And you'd be surprised at the answer. Or maybe you wouldn't. Like, I do think with a game like this, it is harder to pull off horror. Not impossible. Like, certainly not impossible. But you do have to work harder to make blocky 2D scary versus, even PlayStation 1 era graphics. I do think that's a big reason why horror, like legitimately scary horror, not say Castlevania, didn't take off until gaming went 3D. For the most part.
There were some good horror like adventure games before then, but yeah.
Yeah. Once again, there are exceptions to the rule. But you cannot tell me that there's a large legacy of horror pre-PlayStation 1. At least not on consoles.
Not stuff that we'd call that today, probably, at least.
The PC's a different beast because from the beginning it could tap into like interactive fiction. Like, Zork? Like the company,
yes.
The company that made Zork, Infocom, like put out a interactive fiction game called The Lurking Terror. Or The Lurking Horror. One of those. And, it was basically an interactive novel. A text adventure game, we called them back in the day. And you did have more like adventure games, both like interactive fiction and point and click adventure games, and just stuff like that on PCs than you did on consoles. Again, not entirely. Like I know the Mac Venture series got ported to the NES, for example, and The Uninvited had its very scary moments. Like, if you played it, you definitely remember the Southern Belle skeleton. But I feel like we're getting off track here. I do think this game does do a reasonably good job in soaking up the horror atmosphere. Anyway, so that finally comes to pricing. And game's a bit of an unusual price, but I think I can guess why it's this. It's $13.99 because 13 is unlucky. You know, the number of horror and terror and all that shit.
Aren't they in Canada? So wouldn't this translate to about 15 Canadian? I'm only part joking there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
13 is unlucky, and the 99 cents is obligatory.
It is. Yeah, and is this game worth $14? Yeah, I'd say so. It's a very solid experience. One of the better games I've experienced so far, though it's only March, so we have a long year of games ahead of us. And with that in mind, I think that will conclude this review and this review session. So, coming up on the week ahead, let's see. So, we do have a new episode of MSP planned this Wednesday. Mac did announce this last MSP episode, but I don't think it's been mentioned in the Fragments of Silicon space yet. But it looks like MSP will be making its permanent home on the Fragments of Silicon channel in terms of its broadcasting until Mac inevitably changes his mind again. And is also, with an apartment he can live in again. So, on that note, coming up on Wednesday, March 6th, we'll be welcoming back to the program John Gamester81 Lester of Collector Vision Games. If you recall, we had him on the program a few years ago. It was talking about Sydney Hunter. If you remember that game, Yalix?
I do.
This time we'll be talking about their latest in Dead Tomb. Petty got the code this time, so he'll be displaying that. I also got an Xbox code. We don't have an Xbox.
Yeah, unless I can use it on PC.
No, you can't.
Because I know some let you use on the Xbox client to download the PC version if there is one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
anyway,
I don't have an Xbox, so...
Yeah. Anyway, it matters less. Since we do have Petty has a Nintendo Switch, so we'll be able to roll credits, game footage this time. Because, I remember we only got one code for Sydney Hunter, and, that was given to Golix. So, anyway, point is, we'll be talking about that on Wednesday. I'm looking forward to it. I remember John being a rather good guest. No Friday show this week. So, yeah, and no Friday show for a bit of time. Anyway, so until next time, I shall wish you good gaming.